It's the best night of the year. We are back 12 months removed from the last SFL draft, and we've returned for what could very well be, for better or for worse, the last time we do this. But it's a tradition that has been held strong in the league since all the way back in season 11, and it's a pleasure to be doing it once again here as your draft host. And I've got, as you can see, a very recognizable trio of faces here alongside me on the panel. Let's introduce them. Fresh off the back of a championship win in his third season as a coach, it's the very familiar face of the host of the Friday night show alongside Gerald Smith. But of course, it's our broadcast director and Mexico City Aztecs co-owner, Mike Dags. Mike, what's going on?
That was quite the introduction, Jacob. I mean, you made my title so long, we're going to have to extend the length of the draft here, but I'm doing great. Glad to be here. Glad to join this illustrious panel tonight. Looking forward to get the draft started.
Good to have you. Obviously very familiar with your work throughout the league and looking forward to your insight this evening. On his right, it's a very familiar face in the SFLM space. It's of course your new and continuing SFLM Commissioner, Alex West. Alex, what's going on?
Jacob, it's exciting and a pleasure to be here. Much as, I've made some plans that, imply this is going to be our last draft. That doesn't mean I think that this one isn't going to be something special. And I'm really excited to see where people go tonight.
Of course, that makes it all the more special here tonight because it's a tradition that's ending, but also going to be the start of a new one in SFLM Season 10 as we introduce that new system that everyone's been talking about that should pose multiple benefits to the rookies themselves. On his right, I'm hoping that I don't get reprimanded for this introduction because I seem to do so every single time I try it. It is the most respected owner across the league here in the SFL and the co-host of the Streets Are Talking on a weekly basis. It's Hall of Famer Eddie Gage. Eddie, welcome back to the draft. You and I have done this several times now. What's going on?
Well, I don't know about most respected because I have 0 championships under my belt, but I'm proud to be here. How about you?
I'm very well, and it's very exciting to be back here once again. Obviously, we went a calendar year without one. We didn't have one in between the 2 years. We went straight into it. So for a few teams tonight, this is going to be their first and only draft, which makes it all the more interesting here. Teams like Nashville, Albuquerque, and also Oklahoma City have never been in this situation before. Get their first crack at it here tonight. But we'll get started with the first overall pick. Carolina, they got this in a trade from Queen City 12 months ago, and they held on to it, and they sit here atop the draft board. I'm going to start with you, Mike Dags. There are a couple of different directions that Carolina can go here with the draft board wide open. Where do you see this one going?
Well, yeah, I mean, looking at the roster that they have signed so far, it's pretty solid. It's pretty complete. I mean, they brought in Marcus Dunhill to replace Matt South, who left. They've got 3 receivers on. They've already got a tight end. They've only got 4 offensive linemen, though, so you see the team needs, maybe complete the offensive line with a center. I could see a tight end too. So could be either of those positions, but really whoever they add is just going to, just complement a already fairly complete roster here.
This team made the playoffs in season 23, won a wildcard game against Albuquerque, and is looking to further that record in season 24. Alex, couple of directions that this could go in. Who are the players atop your draft board here tonight from an analyst perspective?
Well, just whenever it comes to what Carolina is looking at, it's a one thing that is just Mike hit the nail on the head, where it's one obvious spot where they have room to fill someone in there that's an offensive line player, but some depth needed here or there. Beyond that, though, I think that this is a draft class that has multiple talents at the offensive line positions, so any one of them could be off the board at number 1. It's just a matter of, is it any of them, or are they looking to fill out some depth at a position they felt like they could have used a little bit more staffing at compared to where they were at last season.
Eddie, this team brought in a fellow Hall of Famer in Marcus Dunhill in the offseason, and also invested in left tackle Chad Rowland, who was their marquee free agency pickup, someone that you're very familiar with. Do you see them investing further in that offensive line to protect their new franchise quarterback?
I do. I mean, if you look at the season for Carolina, they had a bounce back second half of the season. But Matt South was sacked 25 times last season. That's tied for third most in the SFL. Like you said, they've already upgraded the offensive line with the addition of free agent Chad Rowland. I mean, his only downside is he's going to probably lead the SFL in pre-snap penalties. But other than that, that's a solid pickup. In my opinion, they should definitely go to an offensive lineman here.
And there are, of course, plenty available. This is quite a strong draft class as far as offensive linemen are concerned. Mango Moody, Landon Stone, and Jasmine Swift lead this position as far as talent is concerned. Of course, Marcus Dunhill last season, notably more of a mobile quarterback as well, and will supplement a very heavy rushing attack as this offense starts to develop under Harish Prasad. Wait no longer, we've got the number 1 overall pick, and for the first time out of 41 tonight, we will cross over to our commissioner and producer, Cameron Irvine, and he will announce the first pick in the physical draft.
With the first pick in the season 24 SFL rookie draft, the Carolina Skyhawks select Nolan Pierce, wide receiver, the number 2 pick in the draft. That is now Pittsburgh. You are on the clock.
Who had that on the bingo card? None of us here on the panel. Mike Daggs, break it down for me.
Well, you know, I mean, like I said, they had 3 wide receivers. They've got Chris Curtis, Adam Banks, and Chase Earl. And, you know, I mean, Nolan Pierce was arguably one of the highest rated wide receivers in this draft class. And, you know, it's when you have 3 receivers and 1 tight end, I could see you going, you know, and getting another tight end or maybe a 4th receiver, you know, just to really round out that passing offense. They chose to go with the wide receiver option, and like I said, is in this class of wide receivers, really was one of the top rated guys. So not surprised to see him go early, but definitely did not see him being the number 1 pick. But congratulations to Nolan Pierce. It's a well-deserved honor.
It's a strong receiver class, generally speaking, and I had to fact check it, but the last mock draft I had from JW Hartshorn had Nolan Pierce going number 1 overall to Carolina, so I don't know where he got that intel from, but he was correct. Alex West, this is obviously a player you're familiar with down in the minor league. Talk us through what Nolan Pierce is about to bring to Carolina.
Well, Nolan's got an explosive first and second step. He has a very high top speed, and also at his frame, he's 6'4", so he's a little bit slower than some other wide receivers might be, but he still has that elite top speed whenever you get him going on a go route or whenever you have him running post routes. It'll be something to see how he develops and continues to work on his skills as time progresses, but he also has the money to do so, and he's on an affordable contract. So he is eminently someone that, and you know, Carolina doesn't even have to worry about that contract right now. So he is eminently able to grow his player and contribute to this squad more as the season progresses. He's already coming in as a capable 4th receiver, and I think that he might go up to the 3rd slot receiver before the season is done.
There you go. So, Andy, it's not so much protection for Marcus Dunhill, but it's a new weapon for him. Talk us through your immediate reactions to that pick, and also where you could see the Pittsburgh Riverhawks going here with the 2nd overall pick, who are now on the clock.
Well, perhaps, I'm not sure how much Chad had influence in this pick, but kind of surprised, you know, considering the available receivers out there. But like you said, he does have top end speed and great agility as well. So we just have to see how it works out. But with the loss of Christian Bachalupi and the changes they've made, perhaps they just want to give defenses that much more of a threat to think about in terms of available opportunities out there for guys. In terms of Pittsburgh's pick, to me, when you look at their roster, they currently only have 1 cornerback on the board on their roster right now signed. So to me, I think that's where they head.
We'll see some really highly rated corners in this draft class here. Alex, who are the names that are standing out to you at that position?
At the corner position, well, let's just go. Let me take a look here and say the handful, because there are some elite ones, but the one that really stands out to me, I think, more than anyone else, is going to be. Let me find.
Elijah
Staring
Quick.
picking. I think, yeah, Elijah. It's either Elijah Quick or Nes Gangle because that's 1A, 1B. But Elijah Quick, of the two, he was able to get a little bit more of his development in at earlier. You could say that Nes Gangle is quicker than Elijah Quick is, ironically speaking, but Gangle doesn't have the same coverage and the same awareness and the same presence, I think, that Quick does. So it's a trade-off.
We're talking corners right now?
We are, but I think it's actually going to be an O-line. I think it's going to be a line.
I think that's the only name that you can throw out there right now. Max Quimby.
I was going to bring
Holy
him up
cow,
too.
did anybody even watch the game? I mean, he just absolutely balled out last time Albuquerque was out there on the field. If any corner is going to go first, I think Quimby's. That's who I think the guy would be.
That's so fair.
There you go, 3 different names there at the cornerback position. Alex West think it might be offensive line as well. We'll find out in just a second here as we'll pass it back to Commissioner Cameron Irvine for the second overall pick out of Pittsburgh.
With the number 2 pick in the SFL Season 24 rookie draft, the Pittsburgh Riverhogs select offensive lineman Landon Stone. Los Angeles has the 3rd pick in the draft coming up. You're on the clock.
There you go. I think you slid it in there. Alex, talk us through this pick here at offensive line.
Well, it's one thing that you just look at their unit. They are only on 4 offensive linemen for themselves. You look at what they've actually not what they're lacking. You know, any offensive line player can play any offensive line position to some degree, but they just don't have a tackle. Landon Stone is, very simply put, the number 1 tackle in this draft and an absolute quality person inside a locker room. He's active on game days. He's active outside the locker rooms. He's a great character pickup, and I think that Pittsburgh's going to be happy to have him.
This was someone that we talked to in Charleston quite extensively and was atop our draft board as well, so no surprise to see him go this high up the draft board. I think positional scarcity plays into effect here. Mike Daggs, talk us through your reactions to this pick.
Yeah, it's not a surprise. I mean, obviously in some leagues, offensive line's not, necessarily, the sexiest pick, everybody loves getting those skill position players, right? And, adding speed and talent to their roster. But offensive line, especially in this league, is, you mentioned it, it's rare, and I mean, even look at all the players that are available in this draft, and probably one of the smallest position groups is offensive line. So honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if every single offensive lineman in this draft class was gone by pick 10. To see one gone now, not a surprise.
There's not many available here, but most of them are of significant value and more than capable of starting on an SFL roster. Eddie, I'm going to get you to do the 1-2 punch again here. Talk us through the Landon Stone pick and also where you could see LA going here with pick 3.
Well, I think the one good thing about Landon Stone that people aren't mentioning is the fact that they have $184,000 in their player bank. So that's another positive. They can go out there and spend money right away to improve their player. But in terms of our next pick, LA, they have 2 tackles on their roster. So perhaps they look to get an additional offensive lineman right here. Like Mike said, there's only 7 available in this entire draft. And in previous seasons, we've had offensive linemen not get drafted at all, which has always been a shock to me because I like to have 5 of them bad boys and girls up front. So to see him fall like that just continues to surprise me. But perhaps there's a changing of the guard, and we will see those players start to fall here early and often. We just have to wait and see. So perhaps LA gets an offensive lineman here, but I also know that they may want to get another wide receiver as well.
Will be the case. This is where it starts to kind of open up a bit here, Alex. Where do you see LA potentially going here?
Alex, you're muted.
Alex is muted.
He's just talking to himself over there.
Apparently, I think it's pretty obvious that the hole on their roster is at the offensive line position. So it's really a question of which one are we going to see come off the board here. I like Mango Moody. I think that Mango is probably going to be the one who comes off the board here. We could be seeing a surprise here, but that's my guess.
Mango is clearly the top guard in this draft class. Again, the position group that is quite scarce. Mike, do you see another direction here that LA could go in?
Well, I mean, you see the team needs wide receiver is listed there. They do have 3. We just saw Carolina use the first overall pick to add a 4th wide receiver. I'm still a little surprised by that. So I could see them going with an offensive an offensive weapon like a wide receiver. They don't have a punter, but we're fresh out of punters in this draft class. I think one of the last punters drafted was Cale Barrett Jr. We snagged him a while ago. So. Could add another corner as well. They've only got 3, but I mean their biggest positional need is offensive line, and that's my final answer. It's going to be an offensive line.
Strong off season as far as retention is concerned. Looking to add another piece to the unit here. Let's find out who they took at 3 with Commissioner Cameron Irvine.
With the 3rd pick in the SFL Season 24 rookie draft, the Los Angeles Lycans select halfback Patrick Rudlang. The 4th pick is Washington's. You are on the clock.
There you go. And just like that, they are wrong again.
Wow.
It's 2 picks now where we were completely off the mark as far as the position was concerned. Mike Daggs, talk us through this pick.
I don't know if I can, but I'll try. So they have Darius Iniguez and they have Sawyer Stern, and now they have Patrick Rudlang. So, I remember when Louisiana several seasons ago decided to do that 2 halfback system for the first time, and a lot of people were scratching their heads thinking, why would you have 2 halfbacks? And now, procedural changes in the league aside, everybody has 2 halfbacks. You pretty much have to have 2 halfbacks. A 3 halfback system, I guess injury insurance, I could see it being something in that regards where, if you have 2-star halfbacks and one goes down, now you only have 1-star halfback. But if you had 3, you lose 1, you still have 2. But to use the 3rd overall pick on a halfback 3 is a surprise to me. I can't say I'm sure about why that would be the case.
Yeah, this feels, Alex, like it's this character fits what we're trying to build in the long term, and he's obviously offering them something off the field here in season 24 for LA. Talk us through this pick here of a halfback.
So there's absolutely instances where you see teams pick players that fit a culture, fit an identity, or interview well and just have a personality that suits the ownership or the GM and fosters the culture that they're trying to cultivate in their locker room, or that they're trying to maintain because they've got a good culture and they're trying to make sure they only bring in people that fit the vibe they're going for. And I think to some extent that's what we're seeing here. This is not we need this person to come in and contribute immediately. We have other things in mind for Patrick Rudlang, and we have the future in mind for him.
With the leadership here of the Washington Trident, it's Nathaniel Diggs in charge of this draft selection here. New era for this franchise. It's been rebranded quite a few times. Now, Eddie Gage, I'm going to pass it back to you. Talk us through that surprise pick, and again, also what you could see the Trident doing here with their first pick under the Washington moniker.
Well, like everyone else said, I was kind of surprised by that pick. Honestly, I thought if that's the route you're going to go with that halfback, you could possibly trade down and get more value later in the draft. But perhaps it was something they saw in that young man's character to make them go that way. We'll just have to wait and see. Maybe they even move him around, have him play fullback or something. Who knows? Just tune in and find out. But as far as that next pick goes, I think for Washington, they are pretty much loaded. When you look at their roster, they are pretty much filled out across the board. So not quite sure which way they're going to go. Maybe they get one of these talented corners that are on the board there. Like I said, a good value, great value. There are cornerbacks on this roster in this league right now in the minors that can start today in the SFL. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. But if I'm Washington, maybe that's the direction they're looking at.
So I want to point out the interesting part of that last LA pick. They went halfback despite Frank Udon being on the board.
Yeah.
And Frank Udon, notably former owner of LA. So they pass on him and go in another direction there at that position. So a couple of shock elements of that last selection. Like Dags, I'll go to you briefly. Some corners on the board here. Do you see that being the direction, or is there another position here that you could see Washington going in?
No, I'm gonna go with a different take because I got to guess something different. Corey Menard texting me saying, "You guys suck at guessing," and yeah, I'm gonna read your quote direct on the air. Thanks, Corey. Appreciate your support. So I'm looking at this roster, and like Eddie said, it is as complete as can be. If they get a corner, it would be a corner 4. If they draft a tight end, it would be a tight end 2. With this high of a pick, I'm going to go with a bigger need. That's really, I would say, their only need to put the bow on top of this roster would be a tight end 2. So I'm going to go with a tight end.
Many tight ends available as well. Only 2 on the draft board.
Yeah.
Let's find out who Washington took with pick number 4 with Commissioner Cameron Irvine.
With the 4th pick in the SFL Season 24 rookie draft, the Washington Trident select cornerback Maxwell Quimby. The 5th pick belongs to the Sin City Samurai via Denver. You are on the clock.
Taken off the board, and of course, with Washington being over 25 players leading into tonight, that $2.5 million that Maxwell Quimby's accrued value isn't going to cost them a cent. Alex West, talk us through this pick here of corner to Washington.
So Quimby is a talented enough cornerback that he doesn't necessarily have to be a CB4, but he might end up being starting there just while he establishes himself with the team and immerses himself in their locker room and their culture. It's very easy to say that you do want to have 4 cornerbacks because of how in a passing-oriented league or against a passing-oriented team, your formations can include 4 cornerbacks out there, and you want to have 4 cornerbacks and 2 safeties for some dime packages, or unless you want to have 3 safeties. So there's definitely value in adding to their secondary here and making their defense that much more airtight.
Hey, this is it feels like a luxury edition here for Washington. It feels like a really good pickup here at this kind of spot to get a player of such high value to just add as a depth piece.
It is, and I would not be surprised, I kid you not, if he's starting above some of his contemporaries over there in Washington come week 2. We have to just wait and see. I play those guys in week 2. It'll be our first time getting a look at them with no chance to get any kind of film on those guys. So it's going to be very interesting to see how they use him, because that guy can go on the field right now and start for several teams.
Joins a pretty stacked quarterback room, as we mentioned. They already had 3. Now they've added a 4th into the mix there. And we'll move quickly onto the newly branded Sin City Samurai. Now, of course, this was Canton Classics as of Season 23. It has been rebranded as the 50% of ownership that belonged to Christian Alacio is now taken over by tight end Talon Steele. Let's go back to Mike Daggs. Mike, there's a few different directions that this pick could go in. Obviously, Sin City lost some of the Canton cohort in between the sales, but it still seems like a strong roster across the board. But where do you see this pick going?
Yeah, I mean the key loss is, like you said, we had to shrink the font down so much on the on the graphic. There were so many key losses, but they were able to bring in some fresh talent, and it is a pretty complete roster. Looking over it, they got their quarterback down. They've got a couple halfbacks, fullback, 4 wide receivers. They already have their tight end, obviously, in Talon Steele. Defense is pretty solid across the board. I'm going to stick with my tight end guess. There's, maybe Talon will go and bring in a tight end 2 to help complement him. I think the easy answer is offensive line, since they only have a couple of them. But I'm going to stick with hashtag draft the tight end. So
Keep that one going. Alex, where's the pick going here for Sin City, do you think?
I think if it's not an offensive line player, because we beat that drum a few times today, and I'm going to stop calling it until we see another one come off the board, to pick something else, pick something different, I think it's going to be Charles Franz, the kicker. He's been absolutely critical for Nashville to get a number of wins this season, including their most recent semifinal victory. So I really think there's some quality to be had there. He's got a leg that can put the ball way out there, and he's going to be a key addition for special teams for a team that has none.
Good catch. That was the one thing on the roster I missed.
Yeah. This is also the first team that does not have an active kicker on the roster. Every other team we've seen pick so far has one currently signed. Eddie, is it kicker here, or can you see this going in a different direction?
They do need a kicker, and unfortunately, there is not much depth. I believe he's the only one available in the draft.
it.
So,
Yeah.
but they aren't the only team who needs one. We've seen teams in previous seasons in the draft pass up on quarterbacks and fill out other positions of need and hoping that their guy falls. So, I think by far they're going to take this kicker here without a doubt.
Again, for those who have never seen this before, the SFL draft sometimes prioritizes things a little bit differently. Positional scarcity really plays into effect here, and we've only one kicker on the board. If a team needs that kicker, they might reach up and take that kicker in place of another quote-unquote more important position. As we get the Sid City pick coming in here, we saw Joshua Durr earlier, new general manager over there. He takes over from Mike All, who was the Canton GM since their inception all the way back in season 16. So after 6 seasons of Classics football, there's a new era in that neck of the woods as Las Vegas returns to the SFL, and their first pick as a new franchise is in, and we'll get that pick in just a moment here from Commissioner Cameron Irvine for pick number 5.
With the 5th pick in the SFL's Season 24 rookie draft, the Sin City Samurai select Charles Franz, kicker. The 6th pick is Indianapolis. You are on the clock.
The panel's radar is back to being a little bit more on check here as we
Take that,
get a
Corey.
read. We get a read. Get Charles Franz here in the war, and good to see a couple of general managers already. That's the first time we've seen a rookie in the draft room as well. Congratulations to Charles Franz, the lone kicker in this draft class, off the board here, going to the team that made that championship game last season, has been rebranded since. Mike, talk us through what Charles Franz adds to this Sin City group.
Completes it, honestly. I mean, like we were talking about, that roster is pretty solid overall. Some holes on the offensive line, and that illustrious tight end 2 spot that I keep talking about. But we've seen so many games won and lost with a kick. I think back to the semifinal game against Minnesota. I mean, that one came down to that final kick in overtime, and it was nice when I saw Chaz Blackwater walk out onto the field. The comfort level that I had that he's going to make that kick. I knew he was going to make that kick. As soon as I saw him in the huddle, I was like, game over, we win. And, in today's SFL, you have to have that kicker. And, now Sin City has their kicker. They got Charles Franz, and he's ready to go.
We saw last season there was a team in the SFL that hadn't had a kicker in Albuquerque, and it cost them in a couple of games, and that's where the former Canton kicker in Rob Ems ended up in the off-season. So there was a vacancy here in Sin City, and they filled it here with the 5th overall pick. Your reactions to that selection?
Queen City is deep. They lost a lot of talent this offseason, as Mike alluded to, but they gained a lot of talent. Some of those players were players who used to play on that team in seasons past. So they already got a bunch of guys who fit the mold of how they plan to build that roster and what they expect out of those guys. So to fill that obvious need was, the clear choice for everyone, I think, across the league that they needed to fill, and they did. So I think them losing Ryan Owens was big, but how big, I don't know. Because I think that defense is going to be solid. It's going to find ways to carry them through, a lot of games and get a lot of W's.
Certainly an important pickup there at that end of the spectrum. Indianapolis is now on the clock. Alex, the Ramblers had an intriguing offseason, had to rebuild most of the roster after Robert Cherry bought the team off of Chad Rowland. So there's plenty of directions that this one could go in. What's your read on this one?
Well, it feels like they should probably take a quarterback here, just because not having one on the roster in the SFL does not typically lead to deep playoff runs, at least not in the modern game. I'm not saying it hasn't happened in the past, but I would be very, very, very impressed by the new coaching staff if they managed to win a whole bunch of games and make a playoff run with a generic QB. Let's see which one they choose to take. We have 3 talented QBs on the board right now, all of whom have had a year in their entire of game film to really watch, develop, make some assumptions, or get a feel for which guy is going to be your guy. They've had the opportunity and the time to talk to these rookies, so we'll see who they want.
So they also have the 9th pick as well, so they've got a couple of spots where they could look at a quarterback here. It could be at 6 though. Let's check in with Commissioner Cameron Irvine and find out where Indianapolis went with their first of 2 first-rounders.
With the 6th pick in the SFL Season 24 rookie draft, the Indianapolis Ramblers select defensive end Seth Harrison. The 7th selection belongs to Queen City. The Corsairs are on the clock.
So that should tell you what's going on here. Indianapolis are going to wait for that 9th pick to pick up their quarterback here. Tonight, Mike Dagg, Seth Harrison, the top edge rusher, is off the board here. Your reactions to that pick?
Yeah, I mean, to say it's not a surprise would only be because, they didn't take a quarterback. Otherwise, looking at the roster, that was the one hole that they had on that defensive side. Plenty of linebackers, plenty of defensive backs. They've already got their kicker on special teams as well, but on the defensive line, they only had the 3. So to complete that defensive line, not a surprise. There's not a lot of teams that need quarterbacks, so I'm not surprised to see them wait. You've already talked about the unique nature of the SFL draft and how sometimes kickers and punters get taken first. Maybe even fullbacks get taken first. Quarterbacks on the flip side sometimes come and go sometimes without ever getting drafted. I think a few seasons ago when Ty Patak was on the draft board, the whole draft came and went, and he was not selected. He didn't get picked until the next draft, when ironically, I remember Eddie went first. So weird things happen in the draft, but I think that they could wait till number 9 and get their quarterback, or just even go with a generic. We've got Larry Love sitting on our bench, and he's had to come in and win some games for us. So much so that I made a bet that if Larry Love won a game for us, we'd buy a Larry Love jersey, and now I own a Larry Love jersey. What can you say? But yeah, great pickup by Indianapolis getting Seth Harrison.
You got to embrace your key contributors. That's the way to do it. But it felt like this was a player, and this is the conversations that I've had with JW Hartshorn since he left us and went over to Indianapolis to start the leadership group over there. This is someone that they locked onto pretty early and knew that they was going to be their top target in this draft. Alex West, where were you at with this Indianapolis pick? And did you kind of see defensive end being a pickup here at this spot?
It's certainly an understandable one. Whenever you, there's only so many ways that you can really say which one's the highest priority, and you could say, okay, well, let's say they prioritize the best available player overall out of the 2. Okay, that means they believe that Seth Harrison, as a player, is going to be a little bit more talented or bring a little bit more to the top end of this team than going to get a quarterback, whenever they know, given that they've got that 9th overall pick, they can, even if maybe their number 1 guy goes off the board in these next couple of picks, they can still come right back and get their number 2 pick at number 9, because Queen City and Charleston I don't see both of them taking quarterbacks.
Charleston's had 2 before.
Queen City. Yeah, true. I was going to bring that up at one point. It's like, obviously, there are no other teams currently in the draft that need a quarterback to be a starter here in season 24. But, of course, we've seen a couple of teams run out with 2 quarterback systems. Jacksonville did it a couple of seasons ago with O.J. Bruin and also Kenny Slider. And then we did it last season with Iman Kopak and John Lakeman. Of course, Indianapolis choose to wait for their 9th pick to take that quarterback edge instead.
Trade alert.
Here's Atlanta are on the clock here. Eddie Gage, can you pick up the scraps here and talk us through what's happened here and where you think Atlanta have moved up here to take?
Well, the fact that he also has $184,000 in the bank, so that's pretty impressive. He's also an elite pass rusher, looking at his stats, so I don't think that's going to be an issue. I think they got to worry about his durability a bit, but, perhaps they work around it with some depth. But in terms of our next selection, I don't know. Queen City, they got a lot of positions to fill. Do they take
Atlanta's
the best
on
available?
The clock now, Eddie.
Excuse me.
Atlanta.
Oh, man.
We just got a trade.
Oh.
So Queen
Come on,
City
man.
has traded the rights to the 7th overall pick, and Queen City will move back to 11 and also pick up 36 later on in the night. So it's Atlanta that's moved up a few spots here. Eddie, quick pivot. Where does Atlanta go here?
I stand corrected. Well, looking at Atlanta's roster, they are, they've done pretty well for themselves this offseason as well. Perhaps they, decide to get a guard in the draft. Like we said, there's only 7 total available offensive linemen in this draft. Or maybe they go with the defensive line. They only have 1 defensive tackle and 1 defensive end currently in their roster. So either way, I think they're going to pursue a player that plays on the line with this offensive defense. We just wait and see.
That seems to be the need here. They only have 2 on the roster. Wolf Highwind, the lone edge rusher on this unit. They have got a nose tackle, so they don't necessarily need 2 of those, but defensive end seems like the need here. Alex, there's a few different options available still here at that position. Who's standing up for you as far as names are concerned?
The 2 that stick out to me the most is going to be Baron Wendt for one. I've shared a locker room with him because I had the privilege of being in Lexington's locker room as a developmental player this season. Baron's a quality guy who's always active on game days and is always in the locker room chatting it up whenever we get a big group chat going. He may not always be first in line, but he's always ready to join the squad. But hey, here it is. Who could it be?
Few different directions to go. That seems we're keyed in on defensive end or defensive line to be more specific here. Let's check in with Commissioner Cameron Irvine to see who Atlanta traded up for at pick 7.
With the 7th pick in the SFL Season 24 rookie draft, the Atlanta Swarm select defensive end Baron Wendt. The 8th pick goes to Charleston. You are on the clock.
So it is Baron Wendt here, taken at the 7th spot here, a new broadcaster in the league. Mike Daggs, talk us through this one.
Yeah, very excited to see Baron Wendt selected. It's great news for him, and like you mentioned, being a former, I don't know why Christmas music's all of a sudden playing here, but hey, it's making me feel Christmassy. But congrats to Baron Wendt, getting on that Atlanta roster and helping round their defense out. Merry Christmas, everybody.
Oh man, I love the draft room antics. That's always what makes this experience so unique.
He's not kidding either. He's not kidding either. That I Kill QB, he is a menace.
Yeah. That's brilliant. I love it. And he's just someone who I have been a huge fan of ever since I met him in my first game as a broadcaster alongside me. I did 2 games with him as an analyst, and I'm looking forward to him continuing in that role, but also on the field here as an edge rusher. He's going to bring a lot to this Atlanta organization. Alex, talk me through it.
So Wendt himself is just the great guy to be around and to be working with. And whenever he's going to be coming off that weak side, most likely, because again, the way he's been training, the way that he's been in the locker room, and what he's been focused on is getting to the quarterback in the best and most efficient way that he can. It's not that he can't play the run game, because he can, but there's a definite emphasis in his choices to trying to get after the QB. He's not going to block a gap. He's not going to plug those gaps up, not that much. He's looking for the sack. That's just how he operates. He's always looking for the TFL, and I love that hunger about him. He's very honest about it and straightforward about what he loves to do.
He obviously, that's a pretty sensible pick there from Atlanta, and understandable why they would trade up to snag him here. Talk us through that Atlanta pick and also Charleston's 8th pick here, as I'm going to go and text who we've just made our selection with.
Who'd you send it to?
If Eddie wants to start, if Eddie.
Oh, excuse me. I didn't hear a name. I apologize. I like the pick, but I also like the fact that he also has money in the bank, 400, almost 500K available at his disposal. So talk about bringing in a player and almost $500,000 along with it. God bless him, and I love his attitude. He almost reminds me like a Johnny Pickle of the defense out there with signs and knives and everything else, talking about he loves QB. So perhaps he's going to introduce a few of them to the SFL. next season. We just had to wait and see. So love the pick. I love his attitude as well.
Conversation with him, and it followed a similar trajectory where I challenged him and said that he wouldn't catch Armand Kopak, and his response was, "If he can still walk." So Baron Wendt means business here in the SFL. He's not mucking around. He definitely has a target on opposition quarterbacks, and I think Atlanta have got a couple of real units on either side of that defensive line. Obviously, Will Firewind at that left edge position. They now have a second on the right-hand side. We'll waste no time. Let's get Charleston's pick at number 8.
With the 8th pick in the SFL Season 24 rookie draft, the Charleston Predators select defensive tackle Frank Doom. The 9th pick goes to Indianapolis. You are on the clock.
Absolutely love this. Someone who we were locked in on for quite some time here. Full source here at 8. Mike Daggs, Togasu, Frank Doom going to Charleston.
Yeah, Frank Doom, he's excited. He's ready to go. 5th defensive lineman. So I think we might need you to explain this one in a little bit more
for real.
detail.
Gonna make someone else explain your pick.
Yeah, how about I'm going to pass it right back to you. Listen, you know what? I'm going to reclaim my original duties as draft host for a second and make them clear. Why don't you break this down for us? Charleston with a 5th defensive lineman. Tell us, what are you thinking you'll be able to get out of him there?
Well, if you looked at Season 23's roster, this was the setup that we had last season, where we had 5 up front there with 3 defensive tackles. It's an attempt to get some versatility on that defensive line, but this is a 100% a character pick. Someone who we know has an interest in coaching this league, and we understand that things like that don't come across, every 2 seconds. It's hard to find coaches around this league, and Frank Doom has expressed interest in doing that. Has helped out Chicago at a minor league level. He's looking to make that step up here in the major league, and also again adds to some force up front, gives us extra pieces to throw around the opposition defenses, gets us 5 up front for a goal line defense as well when we're in that position. So many different ways that we can use an extra defensive tackle here, and it's again in line with how we ran it last season. Alex, talk us through what Frank Doom did in the SFL this season.
Well, Frank Doom, what he did first and foremost was provide a massive run-stopping force up in the center. He was a great asset for the Chicago Warriors over the course of the minor league season. They didn't have the greatest season overall, but it's not because Doom wasn't contributing in the middle. Not only was he able to effectively help plug some of those gaps when he wasn't being completely sealed out of the game by double teams, because that very quickly started happening. People noticed what Doom was bringing, and he did draw those double teams in game planning almost immediately after joining the league. Even then, he still managed to find ways to contribute, to get tackles for loss and to get sacks, and in general make himself the biggest nuisance and roadblock around. And I'm surprised that you're implying that this man's going to be behind Anthony Ellison to start the season. I think that he's able to start for you right now.
Let's see my week 1 playbook. It's certainly something for me to kind of tamper with here and consider, with so many options on the board again defensively for this Charleston unit in Season 24. Eddie, again, talk us through that previous pick, and also let's digest the available options here for Indianapolis. It feels obvious that this is going to be the quarterback.
Well, like you said, you guys went with 5 defensive linemen last season. Baltimore has done it in the past as well. It's kind of interesting to see what kind of front you're going to use this season. Perhaps you might see a bit of that Raiders playbook with that 5-2 defense. I'm not sure what that flexibility we've been talking about with the playbooks this offseason. Is that the route you guys take, or are you just looking for some depth? Who knows? But I love the pick. I've seen him. Also, I love his attitude. So great selection by you guys, and good luck with that selection. And just seeing him there lying on the couch, just taking some time off. I don't know if he's just tired from practice or what, but great attitude. In terms of Indianapolis, I mean, how much longer are they going to wait for that quarterback, man? Let's go ahead and get that done.
to be this pick here at number 9. They only have 2 tonight, and this is the second of those 2. Still all 3 available on the clock. It's going to be one of Silas Christensen, Isaac Covert, or Ethan Flowers, and Commissioner Cameron Irvine has that answer here as Indianapolis gets their new franchise quarterback of the future here at pick number 9.
I think it's Ethan.
With the 9th pick in the SFL Season 24 rookie draft, the Indianapolis Ramblers select quarterback Ethan Flowers. The 10th pick is Nashville. You are on the clock.
You hit the nail on the head here with that one. That felt like the obvious answer. I think we've all loved Ethan Flowers and what he's brought to the league thus far around the community. Lexington Miners quarterback makes his jump into the major league here as he becomes the franchise QB for the Indianapolis Ramblers. Mike Daggs, I'm going to put it back to you. Talk us through this selection here.
Yeah, I mean, they needed that quarterback, and now they've got that quarterback, Ethan Flowers, through at least 11 games that were played in the minor leagues, number 2 in terms of, yards thrown. He's tied for number 2 in touchdowns thrown. Did have quite a few picks, though. That's one thing that they'll want to get cleaned up, with him in the majors. But, overall, one of the standout quarterbacks from the minor league season. No surprise to see him go not only early, but to be the first of the quarterbacks taken in this draft.
Surprising as well. We know he's someone that has also expressed interest in coaching this league. That's a team with some fresh coaching faces as well. J.B. Hartshorn and Brandon Walters leading the charge over there. Alex, obviously this is someone that you're very familiar with as part of that Lexington system. Talk us through Ethan Flowers here as we get a look at James Walters in the war room for the Nashville Tempo, who are now on the clock.
Flowers himself is very near and dear to my heart. He knows it, I know it, and everyone knows it. I love that man dearly. The thing about Ethan is just how much he talks and how much he provides a continuous presence. He gives a team identity by virtue of him being there. And I think that he gives an identity of, a little bit smash mouth, a little bit of swagger, a little bit of attitude to it. But, if you embrace it, you lean into it. He's never trying to be blatantly offensive or disrespectful about it beyond just normal trash talk. And I think that is an element that gives a team a little bit of a mental edge and emotional edge whenever it comes into any kind of game, because even after tough losses, he's quick to pick the team up. He's quick to say supporting the coaching and supporting the vision. And that's something that Brandon Walters over there in the coaching staff had a first-hand view of, sharing that locker room with us, because he was over there as a linebacker, so he got to see all of Ethan's character first and foremost, and was definitely I think a key component in making this pick.
It definitely plays into it. That's a piece of information that I did not know, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it feels like this is a pick that replaces character-wise the quarterback that just left Indianapolis in Johnny Pickler, someone who has got a strong character, but he's very, a huge presence in the locker room and also the community. Eddie Gage, talk us through Ethan Flowers and what he brings to Indianapolis, and further what you could see Nashville doing here with this next pick.
Well, kind of like what Alice was alluding to, his attitude, his spirit, he's always positive. And reading the comments from the Indianapolis brass and the Streets of Talking server, that's what they were looking for. People with great attitudes and had a long-term goal in mind, knowing it's a process with the roster they have in place right now, at least offensively. And I think they hit a home run with this pick in that regard.
That was always the direction it felt like. They were playing the long game. They didn't want to go out and get a free agency quarterback. It wasn't necessarily their choice for the long-term future of the franchise. They take a hit in value, but get a guy who they feel will be a significant piece of their franchise for quite some time, both on and off the field. Nashville still taking their time here with this selection. Mike, do you have any thoughts as to where this one might go?
Well, I'm looking at the last 4 picks taken, and 3 of the last 4 were defensive linemen. That's one of their positions of need. They've got a defensive tackle and then 2 defensive ends. So seeing as they saw some defensive linemen going off the board, I don't think they're going to want to wait any longer. I think they'll round out their defensive line here.
So they also looking at other positions as well. It's been a minute since we've seen an offensive lineman taken. Is this where Porsche Henson returns home? We could see that as well. Let's get a look at it from Commissioner Cameron Irvine here. Pick number 10.
With the 10th pick in the SFL Season 24 rookie draft, the Nashville Tempo select wide receiver Elliot Pope Jr. The 11th pick is Queen City's. You are on the clock.
There you go. So I was in the right vicinity there with a player returning from Nashville's SFL unit up to their major league unit, but at the wrong position. Elliot Pope Jr., the next receiver taken off the board. That's the second so far tonight. Someone who did a lot in the situation. He was the only receiver on that depth chart, led by new quarterback Candy Kane, and did some significant things on that offense as that team had a really good run in the SFL here. Alex West, talk us through this pick.
So it's truly a matter of them trying to get 4 wide receivers to give as many weapons as possible to Switch Thumper next season. He's already got 3 tight ends. He's got 3 wide receivers right now. Adding that 4th lets you be able to go into those 4 wide receiver sets and not have to make any sacrifices in terms of top end speed or some of that more shifty athleticism, as opposed to having to ask a tight end to go out there and try and lose a cornerback on a nifty move in slot coverage. He definitely is also familiar with the organization, with the leadership, and there's something to be said for minor league teams choosing to pick some of the people that have been in their system in the minor leagues as they go into the pros. I can say it's something that I experienced. It worked out for me, obviously, and it's something that has worked out in several cases as we've seen over the course of the league's history.
Absolutely. So another one that we've seen now has crossed from the minor league roster of the same franchise to the major league roster here as Elliot Pope Jr. jumps up to the Nashville Tempo as we get another check-in here from the Queen City Corsairs. Of course, they were at 7, and Tom Welsh got an offer from Fox Highwind over Atlanta, and he said, yes, we'll take the extra second round and we'll move back 4 spots here, and they are now up at 11. Eddie, you were starting to sort of unravel some analysis here on Queen City. You can jump back to that now. The Corsairs adding some undrafted free agents over the course of this week here to try and add some depth, but still plenty of room here in this roster to add a new piece. Where could you see this one going?
I think Queen City right now is potentially, I don't want to speak for them, but I think they're probably just looking to get the best available talent at the positions of need. And right now, I'm surprised that some of these cornerbacks are still on the board, considering the value that they have. I'm not sure if it's people just drafting friends or relatives or, I don't know. But just to see them continue to fall, there's some things apparently I must have missed out on. But if I'm Queen City, I'm going out and drafting one of those available cornerbacks that are still on the board.
Of course, we've highlighted already the likes of Nes Gangle and also Elijah Quick as 2 of the top-rated corners on the board here. The pick from Tom Walsh and the Queen City Corsairs is in here. Let's see who one of the most storied franchises in the SFL has added to their roster for season 24 with pick 11.
With the 11th pick in the SFL Season 24 rookie draft, the Queen City Corsairs select cornerback Elijah Quick. The 12th selection is Vancouver's. You are on the clock.
There you go. Well done, Eddie. Got it on the money there. Mike Daggs, I'm going to swing it back to you here. Top corner on the board. The second of those is now off. This feels like a really good pickup here for Queen City.
Yeah, for sure. I was messaging Tom trying to see if I could take that pick, and he said no. So I guess they really wanted to to get that corner. They only had Justin Reside and Eric Belmont on the roster so far. They really needed to get another corner. We already saw Maxwell Quimby go. I thought he would be the first corner off the board. He was all the way up at number 4 to Washington, and now to see Elijah Quick taken off as well. That was somebody that we were talking to in this leading up to the draft. He's a great guy. I'm not surprised at all to see him go and just barely outside of the top 10. So picked at number 11 with Queen City, and now interested to see what Vancouver is about to do.
Legion now up on the clock, and of course that's the first of a few picks that Queen City will have tonight. They have the 2 first-rounders that previously belonged to Bossier City. They traded away the number 1 overall pick that went to Carolina, and have waited, and they got their guy in the end in Elijah Quick. And again, we mentioned earlier that it feels like any of these top corners could reasonably start on an SFL roster, and that's exactly what we'll see Elijah Quick do here as the third option on that roster is an undrafted free agent, so there's not quite as much value there. Quick seems like a very easy slot in there at cornerback 2. Alex West, talk us through that last pick and also where you see the Legion going here with this next pick at 12.
Well, I'll just briefly touch on Queen City's pick here to move on from that, because Quick is a quality contributor who's going to step in as a rookie and not look like a rookie. And it's going to be quality to see him continue to grow as the season comes along, because he still hasn't hit his ceiling or what he's fully capable of in terms of his bank and his build. So he's going to be able to continue working on where he's at and where he wants to go with his overall future here in the league. And I think that they've just gotten a great snag. But as for the Legion could go a number of directions. I don't see them going to defensive tackle in this instance with who's already off the board. Doom being one of those elite caliber tackles that's ready to play. Bear Winters has potential, but I don't see Bear Winters being the best available at a position of need. I think that we're going to be seeing a wide receiver here coming off the board, because I do know that Vancouver likes to air it out and wants to air it out a little bit more, or at least if Brett Killian has his way. Am I wrong, Eddie? That man wants more passing.
He does, but if I can just interject here for a moment, I apologize, Jacob, but I remember back in the day, Andy used to constantly, harass Cam and ball him up in a corner and tell him we need more offensive linemen and what can we do about this? And season in and season out, a lot of these teams pass him up. And here we are. Vancouver's pretty set. Could they use a fourth wide receiver? Potentially, but I don't think they necessarily need one right now. I mean, you got a Hall of Fame out there in Brett, so you got a great number 2 in Nick Lockett. So why not grab one of these offensive linemen that are still on the board while they're still here? They continue to fall, and I'm not quite sure why.
I was going to pass to you anyway, Eddie, and I'm right there with you here on this pick. We've only seen one go off the board at Landon Stone. That was all the way back 10 picks ago with Pittsburgh taking Landon Stone at number 2. Mango Moody still on the board. Porsche Henson still on the board. Jasmine Swift still on the board. The whole position group is still very much wide open here. Of course, they have got 3 on the roster at the moment. Nick Lockett the 2, Killian Obbs the 1, Lily Nakai remains as the 3 option. Don't necessarily need a 4th option with John Michael Suddath also in the equation there as the new tight end that they brought over in free agency. So plenty of options for Christian Brown to throw to, but could they get him more protection here at pick number 12? Let's check in with Commissioner Cameron Irvine, who has the answer to that question.
With the 12th pick in the SFL Season 24 rookie draft, the Vancouver Legion select the Canadian Mountain offensive lineman Mango Moody. The 13th pick is Charleston. You're on the clock.
Eddie, I'm going to go right back to you because you were right on the money here, and that's exactly the direction that they go in. The top guard on the board, Mango Moody, is off the board, and only fitting that he is from Canada, according to Cameron Irvine. Eddie, talk us through this pickup here for Vancouver.
Surprised that Mango was still on the board here this late in the draft. I thought been long gone by now, but Vancouver is very had to have him, and like you said, a Canadian, that's just a clear and obvious choice for them. Why not?
Mango Moody, part of the Albuquerque Adams system that's going to play in the championship game on Wednesday night. Alex, talk us through this one.
Well, there's not much more to say outside of there's an obvious position of need here. There's a void to fill. They need more offensive linemen, especially if they want to continue to air out the football. They want to have time in the pocket for Christian Brown to work his magic. So shoring up that one spot on the offensive side of the football where you have some holes to fill with the best guard on the board is certainly the way to go about improving your overall performance.
Absolutely. I'm going to go back to Mike Daggs, talk us through that pickup from Vancouver and also where you could see Charleston going here with their second of 2 first rounders.
He keeps making you talk about Charleston.
He knows that I love whales, and that's their logo. So any chance I can get to talk about that beloved porpoise is just something I want to do. I have no idea where that just came from. I just totally made it up. Mango Moody, he was definitely, I think, a top target of a lot of teams. I'm actually surprised to see him fall outside of the top 10. I talked about it earlier on in the draft. I wouldn't have been surprised to see all of the offensive linemen gone by 10, but Moody's still there at 12. I know that was somebody that Vancouver was really keen on getting. That's another pick that I tried to get, and they said no. We won the lottery by having our guy fall to us at 12, and I know they're very excited to get Mango Moody. That's who they wanted the whole time. As for Charleston, I guess we know that Charleston likes to get some depth on defense, right? Adding that 5th defensive lineman earlier on, and looking, there's a need, I think, at linebacker, but there's also corner and safety, where in the past Charleston had even more defensive backs than they have now. And looking at Leo Morris and Brandon Ewing, and of course Jacob Clear on that corner roster, it's a solid group. But I think that Jacob Clear is he's getting a little older, a little bit tired. Doesn't want to necessarily run around with those young pups out there, and might want to draft a cornerback to step ahead of him on the depth chart, so that he can fill Gatorade cups on the sideline and take a little breather. So my guess, cornerback for Charleston here at pick 13.
Give you this bit of intel. There is nothing that I enjoy more than benching my own player in substitution. It's truly a thrill to be able to put someone in ahead of me. Boy, oh boy, I'm actively trying to do that and just force myself in this very expensive injury cover. But you're absolutely right. A lot of defensive depth here. But again, it's also with the roster being at the point that it's at, we're also constantly looking for character selections. And this pick is in. This is someone that we've pursued for a while. Let's check in with Commissioner Cameron Irvine to announce Charleston's second pick.
With the 13th pick in the SFL Season 24 rookie draft, the Charleston Predators select cornerback Miranda Dumas. The 14th pick is Lexington's. You're on the clock.
It was pretty obvious. I found that's someone that we've been trying to court over the last few months here. Dumas made some huge plays down there in Philadelphia this season. Huge fan of her play on the field. Feel like she'll slot in very nicely into our already stacked secondary here in the pod. I'll pass it over to Alex West to talk us through what Miranda Dumas brings to Charleston's defense.
Well, she brings the ability to contribute in that 4th cornerback position at budget and value. She's extremely affordable as far as her salary goes, and she does have the quality needed to keep up with SFL receiving cores. Maybe not necessarily a wide receiver 1 like a Gabe Manning type or an EJ Minson, but she can keep up with 2s and 3s no problems. So I'm going to personally not enjoy seeing Miranda Dumas across the line from me whenever I'm lining up on Sundays.
Fine, I'll put her one-on-one with you if we get
Come on
the schedule.
If you do it, I'm gonna make you cry.
Man, you and your $3.3 million contract.
Yeah.
Eddie Gage, talk us through that pick there of a corner in Miranda Dumas.
Well, I echo the sentiments of Alex there. Not a lot of value, but you guys already have 2 great corners in Leo Morris and Brandon Ewing on your squad. We're only going to anchor down that 1 and 2 spot in terms of the depth chart. So why not bring in someone of value? As Charleston, for whatever reason, they do a great job of retaining players and all that good stuff. So kudos to you guys. So this looks like to be a long-term commitment with this selection here. Congratulations.
Certainly part of the long-term picture here, and someone who we know is a fan of the team, and that always plays into things here. Alex, your Lexington Miners are up on the clock here. Talk us through your off-season and where you could see the leadership going here at this selection.
Well, I know. So we'll wait until it actually comes in.
Yeah, don't steal Cam's thunder now.
No, I
kicked right off the panel.
I know there's only a few people that are on the short list for this pick. There's a handful. that I know are there. Then there's a couple of them that are still on the board. So now it's just a matter of waiting for that confirmation to come through. There's my man. Come on, boss.
Pause.
You know who it is. The agony, the waiting, the suspense.
Absolutely, and of course Lexington they've got a few gaps across the roster, but also has some quality in other areas as well. Mike Daggs, where do you see this one going?
Well, I mean, you see right there in the team needs. Offensive line, only one on the roster, and fortunately, I would say for the Lexington group, they've got quite a few offensive linemen still available, including Zena West. Let's see, Alex West, Zena West.
Yeah,
I mean,
I might
listen,
know her.
I'm sure there's no relation.
I hear she's their new assistant director of communications. She started work doing that later on in the later portion of the season last year for Lexington. She did some valuable work on the graphic side of things.
But certainly,
there's
also to lose that person.
Yeah, it would be a little rough. But also, let's not forget, there's also another lineman there that's got a funky last name. You may know as Swift, Jasmine Swift, maybe no relation, maybe a relation to Marco and Jaden Swift. Could be seeing something there.
The question is, which of the two do you want?
Good question.
There you go.
The answer is always both.
Which of Alex West or Marco Swift are you going to upset first? And I find it interesting that Marco Swift is the one making the draft pick.
He is.
I wonder if that will play into things here. Certainly feels like offensive line is the go here, and those two that have got existing connections this team are still on the board. Here, let's check in with Commissioner Cameron Irvine to see who Lexington picked up here at number 14.
With the 14th pick in the SFL Season 24 rookie draft, the Lexington Miners select offensive lineman Zena West. The 15th selection is Houston. You're on the clock.
There you go. So he chooses to appease the panelist here in Alex West. Alex, I guess you can talk about it now.
I can.
What does Zena bring to the league and furthermore to Lexington?
Well, my wife, besides being a sterling individual with incredible judge of character, seriously, she's a great person who brings a very creative energy to any locker room that she's a part of. She wants to contribute in ways that she can understand or ways that she's passionate about. She's not the type of person who's trying to contribute by creating a playbook. She's not the type of person that's trying to scout. But what she is trying to do is help the presentation of Lexington be the best that it can be. And she's also offered to do some little bit of graphic design for me, just in my own new role as SFLM commissioner. If I occasionally need a graphic, she's going to work with me on that. So I'm very happy that she gets to join the locker room with me. Obviously, it would really suck to have to play against her.
If I'm wrong, Alex, she's also going to be part of that league with the Boston Rebels, who are in season 10. As we get a look here in on Damon Simeon. There with the backdrop, he of course had an active off-season once again, brought in a ton of new pieces, including a new franchise quarterback in John Lakeman, who's also part of the front office over there. Luckily that he is having a hand in things here at this selection here at pick number 15. Eddie Damond is someone who you've got a lot of familiarity with. Who do you see the headhunters going with here at pick number 15?
Well, looking at their roster, they are pretty stacked up and down the board. They're one of the few teams in the league who have 5 offensive linemen ready to start week 1. They did lose Shepard Vakarian suddenly to retirement without much notice. So he said, hey, I'll be a team player and slide my Hall of Fame wide receiver down and play running back 2, I'm assuming. We'll see. But Josh Lapp, I don't know. We'll see how that works out. They brought in John Lakeman to replace O.J. Bruin, who was I guess you want to call it a cap casualty when you don't progress and miss practice and things of that nature. So they did lose Tiberius Bovine. Maybe they go out and get a second tight end to play along Daisy Peace. I'm not sure. Or maybe, just maybe they get a 6th defensive back, but really not a lot of need there considering the value that they have at that position. So I'm not sure.
couple of directions they can go in, and of course with DRC moving across, they brought in a third wide receiver there in former Lexington minor and CJ Parrish, and they've got a fourth spot there that could potentially be filled here at this pick. There's still a few wide receivers available on the board. We just saw Miranda Dumas go on the board. Jared is still available. He was considered one of the top receivers in this draft class, still sitting there on the board. Mike, I'm going to go back to you. Is that sort of the direction you're seeing Houston going in, or is defense kind of more the thinking here?
No, I mean, I think their defense is pretty solid. They could use a corner. You mentioned there's only 2 left. Dustin Sakassi kind of jumps out at me up there. Their O-line is pretty solid. But you know, other than corner, I think the defense is good. Wide receiver 4 or a tight end 2 definitely could be, you know, the name of the game. And, you know, when you talk about positions without a lot of depth here on our draft board, I should say, there's only 2 tight ends available at all. So, you know, neither one taken yet. Could see one going here as we, you know, are in the mid first round here already.
Malone did jump in and hold a couple of SFL games in the back end of the season, so he has had a good scope of this rookie draft class here. A few different possibilities here with this pick as Houston continues to rebolster their roster for season 24. Let's check in with Commissioner Cameron Irvine as he is set to announce the pick number 15.
Got a super chat here. Forgive me for peering away from the camera. $20 super chat from Prime Time says, Houston's coming this season. Get your popcorn ready. We are going to hashtag go get some trophies. Thank you for the super chat and your support of the channel. With the 15th pick in the SFL season 24 rookie draft, the Houston Headhunters select cornerback Dustin Sakassi. The 16th selection is Los Angeles, who traded their pick for cash, Carolina traded their pick for Los Angeles' cash, and LA moves up to 16.
Dags locked in here as the first half of the draft starts to get going. Thank you, Blake Prine, Houston General Manager, over there for the $20 super chat. Mike, talk us through Dustin Sakassi going here at 15.
Yeah, called that one. Had to do a mic drop because I had a microphone sitting here. Anyway, so yeah, Sakassi, you know, I've been watching him quite a few times, calling some minor league games, and player is just all over the field. You know, when he's not injured, he seems to get injured every time Gerald and I call one of his games. So, you know, I'll have to call a lot of Houston games to make sure that trend continues and give the Aztecs an advantage in the South. You know, to try to hurt Houston. But yeah, great pickup. You know, they've got John Barnhart and Kai Cash over there in Houston, and now Sakassi joining that defensive backfield. I'm sure he's going to pick off Sipe once or twice. So not looking forward to that, but congratulations to Sakassi for finding himself a SFL home.
Obviously, Houston part of that South Division that continues to be one of the strongest across the league here, and that's certainly a piece that's going to help them a lot, adding a dime back into the equation. Here, Alex West, talk us through that last pick and also where Los Angeles could go here as they buy into the 16th spot.
Well, it makes total sense that Houston decides that they really do want to have a slot corner in a league that's full of passing teams and that has plenty of mixed offensive attacks. You can't just afford to constantly ask your safeties to come down to play that slot corner position. Not if you want to actually take advantage of being able to rotate your safeties like you can whenever you have 3 of them on your roster. You can make sure that you've always got at least one fresh pair of legs in the back half of that secondary, which is critical as games progress. So beyond that, I love the addition of getting a cornerback so they don't have to do so much of asking someone to play out of position and go do extra snaps at not even their own the guys they're supposed to be backing up. So love the pick. As far as Los Angeles goes, I think that they've shown us that we don't know anything already by picking a halfback early. So they could go any number of directions that they choose to do so here. But once again, it looks like it's time to pick an offensive lineman, especially now that more of them have come off the board. They originally only had 1 off the board when they made their pick at number 3. Since then, we've seen 2 more go in the last 4 picks.
Obviously, they went halfback earlier in the evening here as we get a look in on Sully Richardson.
Staying hydrated.
The ownership group over there in LA. He was happy with how his off-season went, was managed to retain a lot of the pieces over there. Eddie, this defense seemed to take steps forward last season. It was just the offense that couldn't quite get things going. They've already made a pick on that side of the ball. Do you see that continuing here as a trend, or do they go to the other side here to invest in that defense a little further?
Well, keep in mind, they started to figure things out toward the end of the season. They won 3 straight games to close the season, including one of those games was a win over a playoff-bound Albuquerque. I think they show up their offensive line while they can. Like you said, they're starting to fall off the board here a bit. Perhaps that's the direction they go in.
Sure. A few offensive linemen on the board. Henson and Jasmine Swift appear to be the two sort of main ones that are going to be of significant value here, but also a couple of other pieces that could be filled. We mentioned wide receiver 4 earlier in the evening when they went with the halfback. This would be an option here as well. Let's check in with Commissioner Cameron Irvine to see who LA have traded up for.
With the 16th pick in the SFL Season 24 rookie draft, the Los Angeles Lycans have selected defensive tackle Baron Wendt. The 17th pick belongs to Albuquerque. You're on the clock.
So it's an investment in the defensive line here at 16 for LA. We've mentioned Baron Wendt a couple of times. Here is one of the options in that position group. He's gone off the board. Here at 16, Mike Dax, talk me through it.
Well, I think they saw your strategy and said, you know what we should do? We should also get 5 defensive linemen, you know? So, yeah, a little bit of a surprise. I definitely thought that it was going to be offensive line, but, you know, the proverbial they says the game is won and lost in the trenches, right? So, you know, all these teams that are picking up offensive linemen and, you want to make sure that you have enough on your defensive line to counter that. Best way to rattle a SFL quarterback is to get pressure, right? And if you can get your defensive line back into that offensive backfield and put some pressure on a quarterback, it's just going to open things up across the board. They got a solid secondary just waiting to have a rattled quarterback throw an errant throw, get that picked off. So not surprised to see a defensive lineman being added there, in that regards. Still, I think the bigger need was the O-line, but that's the way that they went, defensive tackle. So congratulations to the Big Bear.
Say, I'm a trendsetter around here. I do something and then everyone else follows. It's how it can be sometimes. But Alex, talk me through that last pick and also where Albuquerque could go here with pick number 17.
Well, Bear does provide contributing efforts up in the middle, and he's more than happy to get in the trenches and do the dirty work. That's part of what the job entails, but he also has the build to do it as well. He is not a small individual by any means, so having the mass that you need in order to contribute at that position can be key. We've actually seen a handful of tackles that have some of those underweight builds a little bit, somewhere around 300 pounds or a little under 300 pounds, because they've wanted to be shiftier. They've gotten pushed around. Baron Wendt has not had that problem at all this season. He's 6'6", 350, an absolute mammoth, truly living up to the name Bear in the middle. So that, I think, is quality. That being said, with Albuquerque, we've seen a few teams pick, a few SFL dual teams pick teams that have been, or players that have been in their system. And I think we see that again here. I think that they're going to go for a wide receiver here. And I think specifically they're going to be looking at one Clarence Lee to help round out their roster and give them more options for Cyrus Jive.
We'll say they've got the option of taking one of their own from the SFL into the Major League. Getting is wide receiver the thinking here, or could Albuquerque go in a different direction?
I think, and well, first of all, real quick, back to Bear for a second. He's the same weight as Max Knight over in Minnesota, 1 inch shorter, so they can hold on to him for a while. They might have hit a jackpot. But that pick was in really quick, so we'll see what they do. But I'm thinking they go halfback too.
There you go. It's obviously an option as well. They will need a second fiddle to Jason Williams over there in this Albuquerque system here in season 24. Could they go that direction, or do they go a wide receiver, as Alex West alluded to? Let's check in with Cameron Irvine for pick number 17.
With the 17th pick in the SFL Season 24 rookie draft, the Albuquerque Adams select wide receiver Clarence Lee. The 18th pick is Lexington. You're on the clock.
There you go, Alex. You're locked in now. Got that one on the head. I'm going to go back to you straight away. Clarence Lee, part of that Albuquerque system down in the minor league. He jumps up now to be a part of that major league system and that offense that surrounds the incomparable, and what some would argue should have been the MVP last season in at quarterback.
Certainly, and you know what? I think I should go to a costume store after this and pick up a turban with a jewel in the center of it and a crystal ball, because it's getting kind of easy to see how it's playing out so far. After a few picks come in, suddenly things are falling into place. Clarence Lee is a great addition. He is still a little raw. He has room to develop, but he has a lot of the fundamentals at levels where they need to be, so he can contribute as that slot receiver from the jump. He will be a threat against cornerbacks that have not done enough development, or if some teams only have a couple of cornerbacks and they're having to ask a linebacker to go out in coverage, or if there's certain sets where he finds mismatches, he will burn someone. But beyond that, he also has the bank capital in his back pocket to make more progressions whenever the season starts, and continue to work on his intangibles, which are arguably some of his weakest spots as the season progresses. That working on the intangibles is really what's going to separate him separate him from his peers as time progresses.
There's a 1-2 punch over there with Kay Marion and also Cole Finnemore, who the Adams added in the offseason. Here, Mike Daggs, talk us through that last pick there of a wide receiver going to the Albuquerque Adams, and furthermore, what Lexington can do here, even though it seems fairly obvious what's going on here at the minors.
Yeah, I was going to say, thanks for setting me up to get another easy pick so that I can continue to prove Corey Menner wrong when, he went and said how bad we were at guessing, and then I got some right on the head. I know Eddie picked some, Alex picked some. So you know what, Corey? I hope you just enjoy that Texas heat. I know you're from up north too, and I just hope you sweat and suffer because you were kind of mean. So, and yeah, I'm a petty man. But congratulations to Clarence Lee. Not surprised to see that continuing trend of the minor league program. Getting that player up to the same team in the majors. Clarence Lee, Gerald and I called a lot of Albuquerque games, and we saw a lot of Clarence Lee, and he's definitely helped that team quite a bit. So to see him go up to Albuquerque in the majors, great pickup there for the Adams, and now the Albuquerque Adams joining us down in the South Division, so I'll get to see a whole lot more of Clarence Lee. As for Lexington here, gosh, I think they could use another offensive lineman, couldn't they? Who's the GM out there? Marco Swift. I'm sure it's also total coincidence, but there's a Jasmine Swift up here on the board, so I'm sure they're not related, but
no way.
I just love that name. So
never heard of her. Never heard of her. Don't know who she is.
Let's see, you've been collecting correct answers like trophies tonight, Mike. Let's see if you've got another one. Here as Lexington's second first-round pick is in here. Let's go back to Commissioner Cameron Irvine.
I'm looking at our board behind the scenes, fellas, and already the pick has been programmed into the document.
Yep.
I'm not really sure how y'all know. Anyway, with the 18th pick in the SFL Season 24 rookie draft, the Lexington Miners select offensive lineman Jasmine Swift. The 19th pick is Fort Worth. You're on the clock.
Sure. Mike, do you want to do the honors?
I may have been the one that moved your name right over into that spot on that behind-the-scenes draft board. I think it was just that obvious, but congrats to Jasmine Swift. Lexington picking up some key pieces on the offensive line, through the draft here so far, and that's going to help. It's just going to help the offense as a whole, whether it's opening up holes in that running game, for Deion James, or whether it's to just help keep their quarterback, on his feet so that they can get the passing game going. It's was not a surprising pick, but it is a great pick, and it's going to help this squad tremendously.
It's obviously Jasmine Swift part of the relationships there in that Lexington front office. But I want you to talk about just briefly the sort of future ideas around the SFL, because obviously I think part of the mentality of the changing of the system in the SFL is to favour rookies and give them the opportunity to sort of pick where they want to play in the league for their first season in the majors. And this sort of plays into that idea here with 2 players in Lexington going to join players that they have relationships with in the majors. Is that part of their mentality, is to sort of give rookies that control to sort of pick their destiny in season 10 and onwards?
Blatantly, yes. Time will tell if it is something that creates imbalances in the league, and it's something that I, along with Commissioner Cameron Irvine, will be watching to try and make sure that nothing goes too off kilter or too off the rails, because we want what's beneficial for all. And part of that, we think, is to make sure that friends and family that want to play together have that opportunity to play together. But players and friends and family that aren't necessarily attached to playing with each other have that opportunity to go out, see other people, as it were, broaden their horizons and see what other teams might be interested in them. There's a couple of players who I have directly recruited in that are in this draft class that are perfectly happy not playing with me. And that's totally fine. I'm not upset about it. I'm just happy they're part of the community. But for every instance that of someone being fine with not playing with their friends or family, there's other people that joined this league to play with their friends and family. It's a core part of what brought them here in the first place. And I think it's important to respect that part of people's interest in this league, especially since they're paying money to be a part of it. But that's just my opinion.
Absolutely. And what we've seen as well is that that's not always the case. When we saw doing the rounds this morning that Porsche Henson doesn't necessarily want to play with Rob Henson, so it can also go in both ends of the street there. Eddie, Fort Worth up on the clock here. Talk us through what the Toros could do here at pick number 18.
Well, as everyone saw, they were out shopping for an outside linebacker in free agency, and per the portal, they did not land one. So, to my surprise, no linebackers has been selected yet in this draft. And sure enough, guess what is sitting right in their lap, ready for the taking? An outside linebacker, and I think they're gonna go out and grab him right now.
Which one? Come on, Eddie.
I'm gonna go with Jimmy Burgett. I think he falls right here.
Okay, I get that. Burge is such a menace on the outside this past season.
He is, but I want to point. It felt like Iggy Swift was the prized possession of this position group, and the fact that he is still there, I had him penciled in as a potential top 5 option, let alone sitting here potentially still at 18. But obviously, Burgett has a lot of value attached to him and would be an excellent piece to add alongside Dexter Jackson and E.K. Vincent and the inside of that linebacking core. This is either way. If that's the position they go with, this is an absolute steal here for Fort Worth at 18. Let's check in with Commissioner Cameron Irvine, who has the answer to that question.
With the 19th pick in the SFL Season 24 rookie draft, the Fort Worth Toros select free safety Zion Wattles. The 20th selection is DC. You are on the clock.
Okay, well, forget everything we just said. They've gone with free safety here and added to the secondary instead. Mike Daggs, bit of surprise with that one. Talk us through it.
Yeah. Once again, we were wrong. So, I guess maybe there was some merit to Corey. Great to see Zion there. Excited with being selected by Fort Worth. I'm not excited to be going up against him now, so that's a little disappointing for me. But, congratulations to Zion Wattles and the Fort Worth Toros. I know that must be somebody that they had their eye on, too, because they didn't even want to budge from number 19. Not that I've been trying, but, yeah, Eddie, I got to go back to what you were saying before that last selection. 5 outside linebackers on the board, not one taken yet, and linebacker is a need for them, whereas really, in my opinion, free safety wasn't. Like, they got Ben Stone and Delaney Nash at the safety position, and there's definitely something to be said for depth, but that third linebacker is not really depth, and they also only have 3 on the defensive line, whereas crafty folks like Jacob and the Rochelle and Sully over in LA, they have 5 defensive linemen. So there's a couple other needs that I would have gone with, but they got the guy they wanted.
They did. like you said,
Go for
I thought that was a shoe-in. I mean, I wouldn't have been surprised if they picked Iggy either, because Iggy is very active in game chat and stuff like that with a positive attitude. So I thought, he'd be gone by now. But they saw something in this young man, and as you can see, he's very happy. He's all smiles and he's on camera. So perhaps it was something with his mindset and his attitude, his mannerisms that they picked up on that made him a first-round selection.
He's certainly someone that's been very active in the community leading up into the draft, and was someone who was on my board as a character fit here, and excited to see him go to a destination that's going to be a team that is just consistently in that playoff hunt season after season. Alex, talk me through that last pick, and also where you can see the DC Dragons going here with this next pick.
Well, Zion does add that depth at the safety position that does allow a team to rotate in fresh legs whenever some of those safeties can get tired on those long drives. You can have someone that's actually a star player, a contract player coming in to spell your players, as opposed to having to ask a generic to step in and fill those shoes. And occasionally, if depending on the formation, you could even ask him to come down and play a linebacker position at the inside linebacker, move EK Vincent over just for a few, depending on the formation. You could actually have a little bit lighter, a little bit shorter than usual inside linebacker that still does perfectly well with how fast he is and how able he is to cover the passing lanes. But that's all I really have to say. I think it's a perfectly good pickup, especially with considering his character. Who knows? Maybe being in the green room tonight helps seal that pick.
Could be. But I'm not moving EK anyway. He's a dog. Leave EK right where he at.
Right. With 6'1" and 210 is a little tough to be at. I wouldn't be putting that on the outside line, asking him to go up against tackles on run coverage. But as far as DC goes, it seems very apparent that they need a quarterback, and there are only two left to go get. So do you want Isaac Covert, the ostensible best quarterback of the second half of the season, outside of the playoffs, and even in their playoff game they ended up losing, or would you rather have the breakout sensation of the first half of the season, Silas Christensen? And there's no wrong answer here. It's both of these guys are incredibly talented as far as their build goes, and they're both quality characters. But I do think that as far as activity goes, that I've seen just a little bit more of Isaac Covert. So I think that if they're looking for someone to be active and give that culture identity at that quarterback position, that they're going to be going with Isaac Covert here.
Forgot about that, actually. We talked about earlier about Indianapolis potentially being the only team without a quarterback on their active roster, but DC have yet to sign Shabazz Synergy and may not do so. If quarterback's to go here, you've got to feel that they've landed on someone who they really, really like and feel is a long-term part of their future, because Stephen Melanax is still a part of the off-field operations, their general manager, and also part of the coaching room alongside Jermaine Smith. There, as this unit looks to try and get back into the playoffs, they obviously added two huge targets on the outside of that receiving core to join Lauren Pakoko. Probably the best 1-2-3 punch we've seen in quite some time here. They had a big robo and also the offensive player of the year in Connor Weston, who just ripped a 1,500-yard season over there in Pittsburgh to add to the best tight end in SFL football in Lauren Pakoko. So whoever is going to be the quarterback for this system here in season 24 has got a wealth of targets to try and use here, along with a solid backfield. But they've also got some gaps on the offensive line. They moved Michael Pakoko over to defensive line in the offseason and lost the 3 subsequent offensive line coaches that were attached to his player, and obviously still with some options at that position group as well. That's an option as well. But again, Christensen and Covert, the two available quarterbacks here. It was Roquan Dots who led this position group for a while, but then he went inactive for over a month. Hope he's all right, but it means that he's likely out of consideration here as we look to get this DC Dragons pick, the potential replacement for Shabazz Synergy as he went unsigned this season, and with little cap room left to spare, DC could go down the route of quarterback. Mike Dags, do you have any final thoughts for us as we wait to get this pick?
Well, I have a feeling that we'll see synergy back on that quarterback roster at some point here soon. I think maybe they just wanted to see what was going on with the draft first. Unless Isaac Covert maybe is a quarterback that they had their eyes on. Silas Christensen there too, as you said. But the offensive line, I mean, they have zero. I mean, especially with your guys out there with 5 defensive linemen, somebody's got to block them. So I think the slam dunk pick here would be. I'm thinking maybe Kiera Cool at tackle, but that's what I think they're going to do. I think they got to get themselves an offensive lineman here.
Cool still available. Porsche Henson still available, and again the 2 quarterbacks as we mentioned. Also a possibility for another receiver as well. They have Ronnie Shanahan slated as the 3rd option. They could potentially add a 4th if the intention is to bring back Shabazz Synergy, but we could be in for a surprise here. Could they be a new quarterback in the nation's capital? Let's see here as Commissioner Cameron Irvine has the answer to that question.
With the 20th pick in the SFL Season 24 rookie draft, the DC Dragons select free safety Billy Beers. The 21st pick is Baltimore's. You're on the clock.
It was fist in the air because the panel's radar is once again far off. It's a defensive pick here for DC, so all over the shop here. No offensive line, no quarterback. It's just another defensive piece here to add to the spectrum there. But Billy Pierce has made some huge plays down in the SFL. Alex West, talk me through it.
So this pick here is all about trying to get more of this defensive core put together. And I think it's something to say they're really trying to move some of these safeties to play cornerback positions because they only have 2 on the board, and some of the what we would call the elite cornerback talent has already been picked. So at this point they're going for best available that still fits where they have identified a team need, and they've identified that need that needs to be addressed is in the secondary. Now how we feel about that is to be determined. I still think that there's some really frank danger that whatever quarterback they have under center is going to be under if they don't go get somebody with a later pick or with a free agent signing. But all the same, they are trying to shore up their defense, the air attack, because they think that that's one of their points of obvious weakness.
There's a couple of question marks elsewhere in the roster here. Did that one catch you by surprise? And if so, where did you think that one was going?
It did, because I thought they'd go after a corner as well. I mean, they already have a free safety, but perhaps when you look at this pick, their newest acquisition has more value and talent than their current safety, Tyler Highfield. So, but another thing we got to look at, they currently have 20 players signed on the roster. So these picks, unless something changes, are not free. And I'm not sure what the SFL rules are because they only have 20 players signed right now. If they come back and sign guys like their quarterback and some of those offensive linemen, do these players become suddenly free, or how does that work? I'm not sure. We have to find out later, but that's something we have to just keep our eyes on.
Yeah, so this was of discussion across the last 24 hours in your show server, in fact, as we were talking about the implication of this draft. Like, you have to get to the 25. It's 23 plus however many rounds there are, which there are 2 tonight, as we close down the first of those 2 here, as Baltimore is on the clock. So if you don't get to that 25, it means that your rookies count against the cap. If you're over 25, they are essentially free for the first season, and then if you choose to retain them after 1 season, you then have to pay for them as re-signs. So for DC, in effect, Billy Beers does go against the cap, but is drafted here as Baltimore now is on the clock. Mike Daggs, let's see what the Vultures could do here as the pick's already in.
Pick is in, and they need 1 offensive lineman to round out their roster there, I think. I mean, they're looking good on the defensive line. At the linebacker spot, the secondary looks solid. The offense looks pretty solid. Maybe just get that 1 piece back that they lost and get an offensive lineman.
Looks like a safe choice here. Let's go back to Commissioner Cameron Irvine for Baltimore's first selection.
With the 21st pick in the SFL Season 24 rookie draft, the Baltimore Vultures select offensive lineman Porsche Henson. The 22nd pick is Mexico City. You're on the clock.
There you go. This feels like a really good fit.
I'll be back.
Here.
I got work to do.
Look at you go. Alex West, talk me through this one.
Well, Porsche, she previously advised that she has no problem playing away from family, that she's here to be part of the community at large, and she's not tied down per se. So for Baltimore to pick someone who's got a build that has made meaningful progress, they are looking for someone to help them get back into the semifinals and into the finals again. They only have one place that there's an obvious need to identify, and their front office is clearly on top of things in that regard. What more can you say whenever outside of just that this offense is already an extremely dynamic one of the best that we saw in the league last season, and they're returning basically everyone. The one we lost is, or the one they lost is now next person up.
Porsche Henson falling off the board. That feels like a bit of a steal as well, given how active she's been across the community. And again, we've talked all night about how important offensive line is in this league, as Mike Daggs pontificates over his pick here at 22. Like Eddie Gage, where could Mexico City go here? And also, I guess, talk about Baltimore picking up a right tackle there in Porsche Henson.
Well, another bonus is she has $200,000 in the bank, so can't go wrong with that. And going over to a 5-time champion Baltimore Vultures, so you know they're going to coach her up really nice and get her situated and get her going on the right path in terms of her play development. One thing she would not have to worry about, and she's also acting like you talked about. They did lose, I think it was GP Wells, one of the Wells brothers over there, and they moved their fourth wide receiver over to that spot. Interesting development that really isn't being talked about a lot. Just wonder how that's going to work out for them. We just have to wait and see. But I'm not sure about Mexico City, though. I don't know what they're going to do. Do they go offensive line? Mike Daggs loves a tight end, too. You can see the smile on his face. So one would think it is a tight end, too, because he's showing all 13 of his front teeth. So I'm not sure. Do they go cornerback? Maybe they fell off the board a bit in terms of the talent at that position. So my guess, I'm going to go offensive line.
There you go. Whoever it is, he's happy to have that selection in play, and you can only assume that he's got the player that he was locked in on for a while. I haven't had that luxury because I've got a general manager doing that sort of stuff for me tonight, but it seems that Mike Daggs has landed who he wants here at this spot. Alex West, have you got a key on who this could be?
Well, I think I truly don't, because Mike plays his cards very close to the chest sometimes, but it looks like he might be close to that decision. So in lieu of keeping us in suspense, I'll just take my guess and say that I think it's going to be Kiera Cool coming off the board finally, because they need an offense. They need more offensive line. They want more offensive line. I know they were talking to a couple of people that I know that were on the board playing offensive line. So it seemed 1 + 1 = 2 to me, and there's still an offensive line player that's got development on the board to take. So why wouldn't you?
The defending champions looking to continue to rebolster their lineup. They added 2 huge pieces to that defensive line over the off-season, and Saron Yates and Chance Wall. They continue to add to what could be another championship run here in season 24. They had a spectacular end to the season and knocked off Canton in that final game there, but obviously with the real-life circumstances keeping Devontae Richardson out of the league, they could be looking to fill that second tight end spot that was super important for them last season in that title run. Just checking with Cameron Irvine to see who Mike Daggs is so excited about bringing back to the defending champs.
First, a $10 super chat from Pseudo Nakai, and this is for Mike Daggs. He has to answer this right now. What's your favorite condiment on hot dogs? I think he was trying to distract you from making your pick on time, but we'll take it now. I mean, we have to, right?
Mustard.
All right, there
easy.
you go. Mustard. All right, Dax, be quiet. I got a pick to announce. Okay, with the 22nd pick in the SFL Season 24 rookie draft, the Mexico City Aztecs select wide receiver Jared Dumas. The 23rd pick is Houston's. You're on the clock.
There you go. There goes the other Dumas. Jared is off the board here. and Mexico City have their guy here, adding to that already 3 wide core. Adds a 4th one. Mike Dags, this was something that you were excited about. You've got your guy here at 22. Talk me through it.
Sure do. Yeah. I mean, we were sweating bullets over here all night long, just watching all the wide receivers getting taken off the board. Jared was our pick from day one. That's who we wanted. That's why I messaged literally everybody from pick 1 through 21 to try to trade up, because I wanted to get him on our team. You know, honestly, Jacob, you talked about it with Miranda. You know, the Dumas family has been very active in the league. They're a great pair of people. You know, congrats to you for getting Miranda on your squad. You know, I know they wanted to play together, but too bad. One's going to have to play over there in Charleston. One's going to have to play here in Mexico City. Just the sheer speed that Dumas has at the wide receiver position. It's just going to help out Jordan Sipe and the other receivers. You know, we did lose Navante Richardson. You know, I hope he's okay wherever he might be. Have not heard from him in months, even though his subscription is still active. But you know, we thought about trying to go and add another tight end here, but we've ran with 3 wide receivers for a while successfully, but there's definitely been times where we thought maybe a 4th would come in handy, and we've got a lot of great plans for what we can do with a guy like Jared Dumas. And you know, you just saw his highlight reel there. You know, he's all over the field making plays, and excited to get him in our locker room. That was our target this whole time, and he was still there at 22. Had to take him.
Jared does have my number saved already, but that's for a later date. Alex West, this is a really good pickup here for Mexico City. Talk me through it.
Well, beyond the obvious that we've already asked the man himself why this pick was made and that he's alluded to, it's something special to really be able to see grit quality character guys go to locker rooms and to organizations that I know are going to train them up right, are going to make sure that they're involved on the field and off the field as much as they can be, as much as they want to be. And I think that Mexico City is a great organization for Jared to find himself. And I think that honestly it's one of those things that's unspoken of, is how long will the Dumas family always want to play apart from each other? Who knows? Maybe they'll decide to rejoin each other at some point, and having one of them on your roster makes it that much likelier that you could potentially get the other one in free agency at some point in the future.
I've already got a flight booked out to Australia. Jacob and I are going to we're going to wrestle in the off season for next time around. So we'll see how that goes. Maybe just an arm wrestle. Otherwise, he'll get like some kangaroo to step in for him or something. I would definitely lose.
Ooh.
It'll be live streamed right here on the Culture Football Network, and there are plenty of kangaroos around my neck of the woods at a certain time of hour. That's for sure and certain. But yeah, it's exciting to see both of the Dumases off the board here in round 1, and someone who I thought Jared was going to go top 5. So I'm totally with you, Mike. I thought that he was going to be long gone before you guys are up here at 22. So that's another steal here taken off the board. Eddie, talk me through Jared Dumas to the Aztecs, and also what Houston could do here as their second pick is up.
Well, Jared Dumas, the first thing I looked at is that top end speed, and it takes me back to memories of that championship game where Jason Barley had the game of his life, exploding down the field, beating some cover 0 coverages and things of that nature. So I mean, they're already deep as it is, and seeing him add that piece into his roster, we have to play him week 15, so he'll be well seasoned by then. And I'm looking forward to reminding Jared Dumas that, yeah, speed is great, but we're going to put a seatbelt on him, as Sammy Seatbelt likes to say.
Absolutely, and it just adds another wrinkle into the game plan that teams have to factor in here for Mexico City. Jason Bartlett had a huge season, owing to Artis was excellent. Bruce Blott and Honus Adobe comes back for his second season with that unit. They add Dumas to the picture here. Houston's got 2 picks in the first round. Their second is in here. Let's check in with Commissioner Cameron Irvine to see who Blake Bryan and Damon Simeon have added to the system here at pick 22.
With the 23rd pick in the SFL Season 24 rookie draft, the Houston Headhunters select offensive lineman Grit Gorski. The 24th pick belongs to Florida. You're on the clock.
Offensive lineman off the board here regarding Grit Gorski going to Houston, adding more protection to that line for new quarterback in John Lakeman. Mike, going to go back to you here. What's the sort of mentality here with this pick, and how are we feeling about Houston's roster shaping out now?
Yeah, a lot of offensive linemen. I mean, they already had 5, so now they have 6. Like I get how you can creatively use, that 5th defensive lineman. I'm not sure the best ways to strategize using a 6th offensive lineman. Maybe filling in at a fullback to get an extra O lineman out on the field. I'm not sure, but it could also be planning for the future too. I think back to Fort Worth's pick, and when we were talking about how they didn't pick a linebacker when they only had 2. Not only do they only have 2, but E.K. Vincent said that he's leaving the team after this season. Like, that would have been something that, as a GM, I would have thought, well, let me get that extra guy now, and then I can try to help plan for the future there. So maybe it's something along those lines where they're trying to get somebody on the roster now to start progressing and have them there. But I'm not sure. They already had 5, now they got 6. Interesting pick.
Interestingly, they're not the first team to do that. Washington, we saw already added Charles Michael into that center spot. That became the 6th lineman over there, and now Houston have done the same thing here as Florida have traded into this spot here at 24 in favor of Fort Worth. So there's still no second linebacker over there at Fort Worth. They have foregone that opportunity once more. Florida on the clock. Eddie, talk me through the 6 offensive linemen here in Houston, but also what Florida could have moved up for here.
Well, perhaps, they thought back and saw the games that Indianapolis played when they had an offensive lineman lined up as a fullback, or maybe they're going to use some jumbo packages like some of these teams do, these team packages that you see available. I'm not sure. We have to wait and see. Or then again, they do have the wife of Hall of Fame wide receiver, or former wide receiver, now halfback, Damon Seaman, on the team. Perhaps he just wants to retire and go get her nails done more often instead of putting a hand in the dirt. I don't know. I'm just speculating. I have no idea. But in terms of Florida, I don't know what they're doing, because they have yet to announce some of their signings. So I did speak with Max Paul a couple of days ago, and I don't want to say too much, but I'm still kind of in the dark myself. They did get a pick for tight end too, and Rodney Smith. He's going to help with the stats channel, and Ron Haynes, who already does like 30 games by himself, so I'm not sure why he needs any help. But maybe he just wants to share the wealth. I don't know what they're going to do, because it's just hard to tell with all the signings that have yet to been announced for Florida. So your guess is as good as mine, Jacob.
This feels like it should be on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, we haven't seen a linebacker taken off the board yet, which is quite spectacular, given that it's quite a strong position group. We've talked about Jimmy Burgett and also Iggy Turner, both of those still sitting there on the board. Are those a couple of players that Florida could have traded up for here, Alex, or do you see this going in another direction?
Honestly, it's hard to say what you could see happening here, because anything could happen, but so much of it is just we can't see inside the black box that is the Florida Storm's grandmaster plan for the roster. So without me dithering about what could be, let's just throw it over to Cameron Irvine to find out what is.
Nothing to do here. The pick from Florida is in. We'll get the trade details as well in a moment, but let's see who Florida have traded up for here at pick 24.
With the 24th pick in the SFL Season 24 rookie draft, the Florida Storm select cornerback Nes Gangle. The 25th pick belongs to Sin City, and congrats to everyone around the league for completing a round 1 in 2 hours. Good job, everybody.
Let's go!
I can't believe it. Thought we were going to be here all day here, peak summer here in Australia. I am absolutely sweltering in here, and glad that we could get through this quite efficiently as a samurai. Again here at pick 25, this obviously a Canton pick because they finished with the number 1 overall seed here. But Nes Gangle taken off the board here. Mike, this is someone that we talked about a couple of times here as one of the top cornerbacks on the board. Florida needed a piece of their secondary here with no cornerback signed yet. This feels like a pretty straightforward one here. What does this add to the Florida defense?
Yeah, absolutely. First off, I want to address you're sitting in peak summer daytime. It's, listen, we're on the other side of the planet, good sir, and it's snowing outside, and it's going on 9 p.m. on the East Coast. So, congrats to you for enjoying some nice summer heat. Stay safe. I feel so concerned for your well-being out there in the heat. But yeah, Florida, they needed to restock their secondary, and they did so with the final corner that was sitting there on the board. As far as secondary goes, there's only a strong safety left in Kronk Worthy. Otherwise, all the secondary is now taken. So, being up there at pick 24, right near the bottom of the first round, they needed to get somebody, and Gangle was there still, so they went and they got their Gangle.
There you go. And adding a piece to that secondary, obviously we need to see some more signings out of Florida. We're waiting for those to come through. Alex, talk us through Nes Gangle and also where Sin City could go here with the final pick of the first round.
Nes is what I would call the last truly top tier of the corners, and in fact, one of the last corner off the board that we had a blessing of talent at the position this go around. But Nes, I think, is I'm honestly very surprised to see him going at the second to last pick in the first round. The fact that he's still on the board here is bewildering. So for Florida to be able to go and steal him this late is a huge coup for them, and he's going to do great work on the opposite side of the field from the only corner they do have on the roster in Ryan Davidson. He's going to be contributing just as much as Davidson does, maybe a little bit of a step down, but not a huge step down, if you will. He's going to be contributing in every snap in a meaningful way, and I look forward to seeing it, what he can also do as far as progression goes over the course of this season, to see where his build ends up and how much he's able to do.
Yeah, no Evan Carroll and no Callum Jones yet signed on the roster so far. Those two have been pivotal for Florida for quite some time in that secondary. Eddie, Sin City back up on the clock. They took Charles Franz all the way back at pick 5. They're up again here. What do you see being added to this roster here by the new leadership led by Talon Steele and Joshua DeHert?
You know what, Jacob? Sin City is already deep. I don't know what they're going to do, but hold on. In my Stephen A. voice, SFL Nation Cam, put the camera on me. Zoom in real close, because all you GMs across the world, I'm very disappointed. I remember season 14 down in Boston, up there cold in the snow. I don't like the snow. That's why I moved to the desert. I went up there to support Cam and went to the draft down up there, and Florida stole Alessandro from everybody. I don't know how he fell that far. And here we are 10, 11 seasons later, and they still Nes. This guy has great value, 95 speed, 99 agility. How in the heck is he still on the board? I mean, he can't catch worth a damn, but hell, at least can deflect some damn passes. Y'all get it together. Y'all just helping out. If Florida wins another championship, blame all yourselves for letting this guy fall this far.
Eddie, I wish you would be more willing to tell us how you feel about things, and you wouldn't just hold your thoughts inside that chest. You would say it with your chest.
I tend to say it with my chest sometimes.
He's got to preserve it for the show. It's when it's on the league side of things. He's got to preserve it, unless there's a check attached to it, I suppose. But here we go. Sin City, their second picker is in. They took Charles Franz at pick 5. The final pick of the first round is up here, and we'll go to Commissioner Cameron Irvine to find out who it is.
With the 25th pick in the SFL Season 24 rookie draft, the Sin City Samurai select offensive lineman Kiera Cool. That concludes the first round. We have a 1-hour intermission. We'll be back for round 2 and explain the unique rules of that round when we return. But fellas, take it away for the end of round 1.
There you go. Kiera Cool, another offensive lineman off the board. That finalizes our first 25 picks. Obviously still a good, I think, if my count's correct, 16 to go in the second half. We'll take an hour break, but before we do that, let's have a quick summary of this first round. Mike, break down the Kiera Cool pick and also what your most notable pick of that first 25 was.
Yeah, for sure. Kiera Cool going over to Sin City. They, like we talked about previously with their pick earlier on, all the way up at, number 5. They lost some pieces on the offensive line going from Canton down to Vegas, and now they're able to fill that need by getting Kiera Cool. Somebody I was actually surprised still on the board all the way down here at 25. It's a great addition to that offense. And as far as like my most notable pick, how about let's see, Jared Dumas to the Mexico City Aztecs. That's what I'm gonna say is the most notable pick, because 99 speed. Listen, Jason Bartley, 99 speed. I hope you got some fast corners, everybody.
I mean, Bartley was huge last season. They're getting a player of a similar caliber, really, it feels like. Alex, talk us through that pick and also what your favorite pick was from the first round. Try and be a little bit more inventive.
I will avoid being a homer, and I won't pick a minor for just for to be a little bit more unbiased, center ridden. So this pick with Kiera Cool makes this pick makes total sense for Sin City. They have a massive hole at the offensive line position when they only are returning to one guard, one tackle. They need more offensive line bodies to take advantage of Logan Lee and Robert Johnson and Bill Cherry in the backfield. They need to make sure that Scar Patterson has time to throw the football, and this is how you do it. You make sure that you replace the losses that you have as fast as you can and as seamlessly as you can. And I think this is one of those picks that does that. But overall, I think as far as the most impressive pick, I think it's a very significant one that I'm going to give my tip of the cap to Pittsburgh up at number 2 with taking Landon Stone. I think they absolutely took the right guy there. He is the best offensive lineman in this draft, and he is, arguably speaking, the best offensive lineman on Pittsburgh's roster now that he has joined it. He is a monster at left tackle and will, I think, be a key contributor on every team that he's a part of, holding down that weak side season after season, especially as he has more time to develop. I think one of the things he needs to work on over time is going to be that lateral sliding. It's one of the things that he did have some troubles with in the minors. If there were some wide 9 stunts or some outside stunts for linebackers, he sometimes occasionally got beat on that. But that was the only time you saw him getting beat. You never saw him getting sent on his back. You did not see him getting put on highlight reels, putting in the spin cycle. He's just a real mean mother trucker on that left tackle position, and he can go right tackle if you need him.
Yeah, absolutely. Another home run hit from Keith Wheeler over there in the leadership of Pittsburgh. Eddie, same question. Reaction to that last pick and also your favorite pick from that first round.
I don't know about favorite pick, kind of hard to tell just yet, but I love to see the offensive linemen get picked up, and I just wonder how much of a factor did the fact that some of these players had teams they preferred to play for. Maybe that's why they failed a bit. Who knows? I mean, that's one of the reasons why we kind of traded out of the draft, because we didn't want one-season rentals and things of that nature. I try to build for long-term growth, but you never know. Maybe they might fall in love with where they're at and find something that they actually like about the place inside the state. We've seen that happen in the past as well. So I don't know, but like Alex said, I love that Landon Stone pick. It was a glaring need. I wish they'd have went and got a cornerback before all the value was gone, but they only had that pick in the first round. So we'll see what they do in the second round in terms of addressing that need. I love Max Quimby, the Washington pick. I mean, they're already deep at corner, but if they're going to get even more depth at that cornerback spot, it's going to make that week 2 game versus them that we have to face them in that much more interesting. Sin City going out and addressing an obvious need at kicker with Charles Franz. Great job. Frank Doom going to Charleston. Like you said, that's a value pick in which you're just looking to bond a relationship with those guys and continue with the character they're building that they do over there. Elliot Pope Jr., loved him. Ethan Flowers, I think that was the best quarterback in the draft in terms of character and things of that nature. So doesn't have a lot of value, but I think that's going to be a long-term investment for them.
Does it? We will return here in an hour's time at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So don't go anywhere. Get ready, and we will reset here for further 16 picks here in the second round in an hour's time, right here on the Virtual Football Network.